Sometimes less is actually more. Brandy found this out the hard way after experiencing burnout whenever she had to readjust the output that she was doing with content. But now after actually readjusting her workflow, she's able to put out content daily on multiple platforms and with different things that she does like cosplay, gaming, and also reaction content. Let's go ahead and take a listen to her story.
In terms of games, I definitely am heavy variety. I like to jump into whatever's current. I love delving into whatever's new and trying things out, but then I also just fall back to the things that I enjoy playing. So I like to do a mix of both, and I always gotta include horror in the mix. Every week I try to implement a new horror game that I've never streamed before, whether it's multiplayer or single player. That's a staple that I've held on my channel for probably the past like 3 or 4 years at least.
And then how do you manage that between your YouTube, Instagram, TikTok as well? Kind of like, what's your overall strategy with all the platforms, I guess?
I definitely have to be like extremely on top of my scheduling to keep up with everything. I overwork the crap out of myself, so that's just part of it. Like Twitch 4 days a week, YouTube I upload every single day, so I'm like very critical of when I film, when I upload. I schedule everything. I normally schedule everything like a week in advance. That way I can like take 1 to 2 days of like heavy work, edit whatever days, and then I don't have to think about it for the next week. In terms of Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, I kind of go through the model, which I've told other people, of like binge creating content on the days that I have time to do that. That way I can schedule in off days. So I take certain days where I'm just like, okay, I'm working from dawn till dusk, making as much content as I can, and then I'm gonna slowly filter this out over the next week. That way I can have some days off where I'm not constantly having to stress new stuff. That's kind of the model that I go at, and I kind of follow that through all my socials.
You're a full-time creator, so
Yes.
How do you kind of prioritize your time when it comes to planning, whether it is, a side project that you're working on, or is it very much you sticking to the routine of the streams? You said 4 days a week. Like, what's that process?
I definitely have set a schedule for myself that I stick to. So between YouTube and Twitch, those are very strict schedules that are easy to just follow. In terms of other socials, I just try to upload like once a day for most things. In terms of how I go about making content, in my brain, I always, anything that has like a set deadline has the priority. And then from there, things that I just want to do kind of down the line of where I have time, that's how I get to those. Try to always mix it in, but you can only do so much as one person.
What do you think's been one thing that you changed with your process, or maybe even a new habit that you started since going full-time?
I've been full-time for about 4 years now. I do 10 times more work than I ever did before I was full-time. Like, I mean, obviously I have the time because this is my job, but at the same time I don't have the time because I plan out too many things and then I overwhelm myself. Something I definitely wish that I started doing sooner was giving myself a break. When I first started going full-time, I was like, I'm gonna stream 2 different times a day and I'm gonna make sure I have a video uploaded, but I was gonna edit and do it the same day. I was not giving myself any off days. I was not having any downtime, and I got burned out so quickly that I had to, like, after that first year, I had to reassess everything and figure out what schedule that I'll be able to pump out content but also maintain over a longer period of time. And even still, I'm constantly adjusting my schedule. Like, I was doing like full long videos on YouTube every single day for like 2 years, and I was like, I can't. I feel like I'm just churning out content but not quality. So like brought down the amount of long form videos, added more shorts that are more simple to do, kind of gave a healthy mix. And to be honest, doing less work but higher quality work ended up working for me, and I started getting more subs and follow and what all that. So definitely making sure to give myself a break and figuring out a better schedule early on is so much more beneficial.
You've been creating for a long time. Was there any like particular even skill set or type of content or anything that stood out the most?
I would say it was a couple of things. First, because I quit teaching, prior to that, I had to have all of my accounts privated. So it was really hard to grow because, I couldn't use hashtags or I couldn't share things. So I was already putting myself in a box. So once I had that freedom, it definitely propelled things. And I want to say another thing at that same time was TikTok was like kind of starting to take off a bit more. Cosplayers were huge on TikTok at the time. So I was already in that, it was that cringe era of TikTok of like the really weird distorted movements segments and stuff, and I made many of those that I don't look back on fondly. They went well, and I had a couple things go kind of viral on TikTok, which then carried over to like Twitch and YouTube, which was really good. I think the last thing that skyrocketed things, which was totally random, but a couple of like AEW and WWE wrestlers found my Twitch and like rated into me and were super like supportive and just like went 100% in helping me, which was like completely out of the blue because I am now, but at the time I was not a wrestling fan. So
yeah,
like even when even when they came in, I was like, my community was like, oh my god, and I'm like, should I know who this is? That brought a huge wave of people, which honestly was like that last big push that I needed to like get partner and things like that.
When you made the switch to full-time though, what was one of the scariest things for you as a creator?
The scariest thing probably was one, being able to be self-sufficient, because in that first year that I did switch was the year that like I had moved out of my parents' house. I, was paying all of my bills myself, had this new apartment with a roommate that was relying on me. All of that was the biggest fear of, I don't want to quit this stable job, even if I hate it, to dive into something that is very inconsistent. It wasn't like I was pulling in tons of money, like I was making ends meet, like it was tight. Of course, was extremely anxious about that, but then at the same time, my family and friends are all like, what is this? What is Twitch? What is YouTube? Like, I have no idea what that is. That's not a real job. I had a lot of my family not that they weren't supportive per se, but they didn't get it. Anytime I would talk about what I was doing, they would just in one ear and out the other and just ask me when I was going back to teaching. Like, even though it's 4 years later, my dad still asks me like, oh, are you gonna go back to teaching? And I'm like, no, Dad, not if I do, I'm gonna be an old lady doing it because I'm gonna run this train as long as I can.
Was that a discussion that you were like, hey, this is what I'm planning on doing? Did you try and lay it out for them or siblings or anybody else that was like trying to explain it?
Nope, I just did it spur of the moment. I was like thinking about it for a while, and I just needed that one last thing at work to me off, and I was like, peace. I kind of went home. I called up my mom because she's definitely one of those moms that she doesn't have to understand it. She'll just be like, yeah, do it, like whatever. So my mom was full force into it, and she's so cute. She comes into my streams now like every night and hangs out for an hour before she goes to bed. It was definitely spur of the moment. I just kind of did it. My dad is definitely more of the I don't really understand it, so I was just like, I promise this is gonna be good. Had to like fluff it up a lot to make it sound like everything's gonna be fine, and luckily things were fine, so I didn't have to like go back on that. Was not pre-planned, just kind of went for it.
If you could give any advice to other creators that are listening, or even if there's any big takeaways from what you were talking about today, I'm sure you get asked in general on streams or videos or whatever for advice, especially for how long you've been doing it, what would you say?
I always tell people, just do it. I know that sounds so simple, but I know so many people let themselves hold themselves back because they're nervous of criticism, or they're nervous of how people will perceive them, or that everything they post is going to flop. And at the end of the day, all of those things are probably going to happen, but if you let your fear of failure hold you back, then you never know what could come of it. Put yourself out there a little bit and you never know what might happen.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Brandy on all social media platforms. Also, don't forget to subscribe and also like this video. It really helps us out. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one.